Today I'm going to cover what I call stage 1 dividend stocks, stage 2 dividend stocks, and companies that pay dividends that you don't want for a plan like this. So let's start with stage 1. Stage 1 is growth. It's from when you start your dividend plan until you retire. Now there's going to be two ways that you grow your dividend portfolio. One is, you working, you having a salary, you spending less than you make, and at the end of the year, after your bills are paid, after your taxes are paid, you have money to buy more shares in your dividend positions. The second way you're going to grow your dividend portfolio is by reinvesting all of the dividend payments. A company pays you a dividend, you don't cash it out and use that money, you buy more shares with that money. So you're getting more shares two ways, from your salary, like outside money, and inside money. All the dividend payments are going to be reinvested. So how are the dividend companies going to help you grow? They're going to help you grow in two ways. You want to get companies where you start with a fairly high yield. So the yield is the dividend payment over the course of the year, the total that you get paid in dividends over the course of the year per share, divided by the stock price. So 5% is like solid. Too high, close to 10%, is probably suspiciously high. It's probably a marketing ploy to try to get new investors, and too low just isn't going to help you that much. So you're looking for around like 5 to 8%, 4 to 8%. The average of the positions I have right now is about 5.5%. You also want companies that are aggressively increasing their dividend amount. So there's a formula where you could look back. I usually look back about 8 years, look at what the dividend was 8 years ago, look at what the dividend is today, and you can calculate what has been the average annual increase as a percent in the dividend amount. So if a company had a dividend amount 8 years ago of 30 cents and today it's $1, what do you need to multiply 30 cents by 8 times in a row to get to $1 today? That example I just made up off the top of my head, so I don't know the answer. But the formula, if you want to calculate it right now, it's the ending amount, $1, divided by the start amount, 30 cents. Raise that to the 1/8 power. 1/8 because we're looking back 8 years. And then you subtract 1, and then you multiply by 100 to get the percent. Very simple. But some very good recent increases have come from Lockheed Martin, a 9% average annual increase, Iron Mountain, 11%, and AbbVie, you've probably seen their drug commercials, 16%. So these are all companies I'm either watching, I owned recently, or I own now in some form. I'm like keeping an eye on them. This stat across all my positions right now is about 8.5%. But the next 3 videos are going to be mostly about stage 1 growth, how to get the money you have now into an amount in a few years, 10, 15, 20, 30 years, where you can retire. So today, I'm going to start and finish covering what I call stage 2. Stage 2 is retirement. It's very simple, much simpler than stage 1. Stage 2, you just buy shares in dividend stocks and you cash out all your dividend payments. You live on that money. That's the end of it. In stage 2, what you want is reliability. You want the dividend to continue, and you don't want it to get erased. You don't want it to get cut. CenturyLink, I think in 2018, cut their dividend by about half. People were getting certain amounts in dividend payments, and then all of a sudden they were getting half that amount. Ford, during the pandemic, totally erased it. So people went from getting dividend payments regularly to not getting anything. That would be terrible in this type of a plan. In stage 2, you want reliability. You've already grown your money in stage 1 to the amount of money you need to fund stage 2. Stage 2, all you want is reliability. How do you look for these companies? It is very, very easy. You go to the Dividend Aristocrat list. In order to be on the Dividend Aristocrat list, the company must have increased, not just paid, increased its dividend amount every year for at least the past 25 years. That is an incredible amount of reliability, and those companies love having this on their resume. AT&T, Procter & Gamble, others, they love being on the Dividend Aristocrat list. It's how they keep their shareholders. They're going to do everything they can to continue to increase that dividend amount and stay on the list. So it doesn't get more reliable than that. There are 65 companies on this list right now, and here are the top 5 in terms of the longest streaks of consecutive years increasing the dividend. So the most amount of years a company has increased its dividend amount is 67 years. That company is Dover. 67 years ago was 1955. They have increased, not just paid, increased their dividend amount since 1955. Then there's a 3-way tie, Genuine Parts, Procter & Gamble and Emerson Electric have all increased their dividend amount for the past 66 years, and 3M has increased the dividend amount for the past 64 years. 3M you've probably heard of. They've made masks, they make Post-it notes, things like that. They've made those hooks. You know, the back is sticky, you just stick it on the wall, now you have a hook on the wall. So let's use 3M as an example. You've made money, you have money, you just want to use it to create retirement income, you just want to park your money in 3M and live off the dividends. What would that look like? Say January 1st of last year, the start of 2021, you wanted to put all your money in 3M and retire. So let's say you had about $1.1 million and you can afford 6,800 shares of 3M. Well, last year, over the course of the year, 3M paid $5.92 per share. That was the dividend amount. So when you multiply 6,800 shares times $5.92, you get $40,256. So if you could live on $40,256, that's it. You put all your money into 3M, you got this many shares, and they're going to pay this amount in dividends at least. They're going to increase each year. And last year, you would have gotten over $40,000. In arriving at this amount, the payment amount of the dividends that you can get, that you can cash out, that you can live on, the price of the stock is not in this equation. It's how many shares you have multiplied by the dividend amount. Whether the price of the stock increased, stayed the same, or decreased, it doesn't matter. Your share amount multiplied by the dividend amount, and you get $40,256. And for those of you absolutely obsessed with inflation, this is what it would look like 2021 to 2022 if you only owned 3M in a stage 2 dividend plan. So if we go back to 2021 and the 3M numbers, 6,800 shares, the dividend was $5.92, and that's how we got $40,256. Well, 2022, we would have the same number of shares. The dividend had to increase for 3M to stay on the Dividend Aristocrat list. It increased 1 cent per payment. There's 4 payments per year, quarterly, so $5.92 became $5.96, and now you would receive $40,528 in 2022. The fact that it's on the Dividend Aristocrat list means the dividend amount must increase, so that keeps up with inflation somewhat. So that doesn't seem like much, but it was a poor year for 3M, but they want to stay on that list. So they increased their dividend amount, the minimum, to stay on the list. So that's the minimum you could count on to combat inflation if you're concerned with that. However, 2017 to 2018, 3M increased the dividend amount over the course of the year 74 cents. So with that same 6,800 number of shares, you would have increased year to year your dividend payments by about $5,000. So no one would complain about a $5,000 increase to combat inflation. Yes, 2021 to 2022 wasn't amazing if it's something you're concerned about. And quickly, there are dividend paying stocks that you don't want in these plans. A couple of good examples are Apple and Microsoft. Those are good stocks for other reasons. They're not good stocks for a dividend portfolio. Yes, they pay it, but their stock prices have taken off so much that the dividend is so tiny as a percent. Dividend amount divided by the stock price, it is such a small number. I think Apple's is under 1%, Microsoft's is barely over 1%. So when you're getting your dividend payments, it's just like a tiny, tiny bonus. There are reasons to own those companies. The reasons cannot be because you want them in a dividend portfolio. If you own those companies a long time ago and you still own them right now, yes, you have made a lot of money because the stock price has increased, but you're not gonna make a lot of money by accruing extra shares because the dividends are just so small. You know, I said earlier in the video that my average yield right now is about 5.5%. If you had Microsoft and Apple, your average yield would be about 0.8%. So it exists, but it's just too small to matter for those companies. The stock price has skyrocketed so much that the dividend barely even exists anymore. So stage 2 and stage 3 completely covered. The next 3 videos are going to be more in depth about stage 1, growth.
Yeah, I got it at the stadium.